As a digital media expert, he has been at the center of the most disruptive trends of the last 30 years and partnered with some of the world's biggest brands, including Coca-Cola, McDonald's, General Motors, United Airlines, Microsoft, Apple, and Facebook. He also was a senior advisor to LinkedIn and was appointed to the White House Initiative for Education and Technology by President Bill Clinton. He helped transform entire industries and revamp governments. In his best-selling book, Disrupt You, he shows how we have the power to succeed in business by disrupting our internal limitations, turning obstacles into opportunities, and killing our best ideas. In today's ever-changing and often-volatile business landscape, adaptability and creativity are more crucial than ever. The illusion of security robs ambition. That's why, to successfully navigate today's professional landscape, you must understand the dynamics of disruption. This is a big honor to have him on this today's episode. Jay Samit, good morning and welcome to Le Manal Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Jay. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Every day is a good day.
Yeah, American mindset. I love it. So, Jay, I always start my conversation with the same question, which is why? Why are you doing what you do today?
Excellent question. I've had a great life. And if you would have told me when I started in basically a working class neighborhood that dozens of friends would become self-made billionaires with a B, I'd ask you what you were smoking. I didn't know what a millionaire was, let alone a billionaire. And what I noticed in my career was a pattern. These people weren't necessarily smarter. They didn't come from better families. They didn't go to the right universities, but they looked at the world differently. And so I'm trying to pay that forward because especially after the pandemic, the world's middle class has been wiped out. And unless we teach people to be job creators, due to automation, half of all jobs will disappear during this decade. So if you're sitting with a friend right now, look at each other, one of you is about to be disrupted. So the flip side is you can teach anyone. I've taught this at the college level, and I've had students do $100 million US. I took a homeless immigrant and mentored him one day for a year, and he became a millionaire. And so now my mission is to try to teach what we don't teach in schools. In schools, we teach people enough reading and writing to go work for someone else and make someone else's dreams come true. But we never teach people how to have a successful life filled with purpose. And I believe the purpose of life is to live a life of purpose. So if we can help people learn that they can do it, anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, we have the same mission, teaching what we don't learn at school. So important to me. But tell me, what was your first motivation when you started your entrepreneurial journey?
So I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur, or businessman or anything, but I had two sons very young, and they were my motivation to keep going. I bought into what society said, go to school, get good grades, and live happily ever after. And I graduated during a recession, and there were no jobs. And then when you applied for jobs, suddenly something dawned on me. Any job you apply for already existed, which means somebody else has already done it, which means there's tons of people with more experience. Why would they ever hire you? So I learned early on that one of the secrets is do something unique. Because if you're the only one doing it, by definition, you're the best in the world at what you do. So the more you can fill a void and find those openings, the easier you will find success is. And success, people think entrepreneurs sell things. They don't. They solve things. They solve problems. If you solve a problem for 5 people, you have friends. If you solve for 1 million, you become wealthy. If you solve for 1 billion people, you change history. So that's what entrepreneurs do. They look at problems in their lives and they realize other people have the same problems. And that's all that it is.
So I have 2 questions, Jay. First, at the beginning, your first motivation was money, right?
Yes.
To educate your children and take care of your family.
Absolutely.
Okay, 30 years later, what drives you now, today?
Because I see a world that is incomplete, a world that has so many problems, and yet we don't teach people how to address them and how to solve them. And I love democracy. Funny, it sounds very American, but there's never been a war between two countries that have a McDonald's. Let that sink in. What it basically means is if you had a middle class, you don't have war, you have stability, you have democracy. If you don't have a middle class, you end up with authoritarian regimes and a pretty ugly society. So I'm trying to help the world heal by teaching people how to create those jobs and create a strong middle class. So that's whatever time I have left on the planet. I'm not doing this to make money. I don't sell masterminds. I don't sell consulting. You can't buy a T-shirt with my face on it. And if you know anything about book publishing, there's no money in books. I'm doing it to try to pay forward and make other people's journeys easier.
Today, you don't do that for money because maybe you have enough money at the bank account.
This is true.
Yeah. True talk.
Money's not a motivator. I don't need airplanes. I don't need yachts. I'm a simple guy with a perfect life.
But Jay, do you have political ambition? Because you talked about democracy.
When I was young, I thought it would be great to go into politics. Having worked in the White House, having worked with world leaders, having worked with the Pope, having worked with people at the top, you can actually do more good not being in politics than you can once the system owns you.
Why? Tell me more about that.
Because once you get into politics, your job is to continue to stay in politics and to raise money. And the only reason corporations and donors give you money is because they want something. And every time you then compromise your values bit by bit, you will disappear. It's not that these people start out wanting to be evil. They want to do good, but the system corrupts. Yet, if you sit on the sidelines and you can have access to all these people and you can do it privately, you can have much more influence. And so I know many of my very successful friends have an invisible hand in trying to make the world better. I had to give up my privacy to let people know about the books, to go speak and become a face to a book in an era of social media. And that was something that probably didn't make my wife happy, but it was something that I was willing to do for the greater good.
Okay, so if I really understand, political can't really change the world. You have more influence through your book and conference and masterclasses and all the work you do, actually.
Yeah. There was a time when I had a meeting with the president, and I got
Which
to
one?
the White House, President Clinton.
Clinton, okay.
And I got to the White House early, and they said his day had changed and stuff. Could I come back later? So I went to the Washington Post to pitch them a story about my company and whatever to fill up the day. And I get back, and he said, "What did you do?" And I go, "Well, I went to the Washington Post, the big newspaper, and asked them to write a story about something." And here the most powerful man in the world looks at me and goes, "You can do that?" And that's the difference between being elected and not.
Oh my God, that's very impressive. Oh yeah, he asks you, you can do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
Bill
the president,
Clinton, yeah.
the president can't ask a newspaper to write a story.
Yeah, this is incredible. It seems, Jay, it seems like being disruptive is in your DNA. Have you always been like that, like visionary, ambitious, and confident about what you do?
I think it's more, I never bought into that there were people that are better than you or that your fate is predetermined. I just realized early on, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And when someone in business tells you no, when you go out to raise money and they say no, they're not saying no, you can't do it. They're just saying no, you can't do it with them. So you very quickly realize that the only person that can stop you is you. And the reason I wrote Disrupt You was we all have this little voice in our head that tells us what we can't do. And it was put there by teachers and parents and others that wished you well, but they were trying to shield you from pain and hurt. So they didn't want you to have to fail. Well, failing is the most important thing. When you fail, you don't end up where you started. You either earn or you learn, but either way you propelled forward. A toddler doesn't stand up one day and go, today I shall walk across the room. They take a step, they stumble, they get up, they stumble, and eventually they learn to walk. When you play a video game, you don't sit down and an hour later you're through all the levels. You hit some immovable obstacle and you hammer and hammer, and then you get past it and there's another obstacle. Well, that's what your career is. And when you realize that failing is part of the process, that the difference between failure and failing is this. Failing is learning what doesn't work. Failure is throwing in the towel and giving up. And anytime you think that you want to give up, just stop and realize how far you've already come, because you never know how close you are to success.
Okay, your life wasn't always easy. Actually, you are dyslexic, and being dyslexic at school can be very difficult challenging, because your brain is different than the norm, and the learning techniques are not adapted to optimize your potential at school. If you can give one advice to all parents who have a dyslexic child, what do you want to say them?
Well, I'll give the piece of advice for all parents, because all children are different. All children are unique.
Yeah, you're right.
I hate when adults go to kids, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I had this question.
As if there's only one thing. What you should be asking children at every stage of life is, what problem do you want to solve when you grow up? Because from the youngest age, we see injustice, we see problems, we think that bother us. And it is by looking at the world as something that we're here to heal and make better, that you will make better kids. One of my dearest friends was lucky enough when she was in the 4th grade to have a swing knock out all her teeth. And I say lucky enough because she was obviously very sad and hurt. But when the dentist gave her all new teeth, it was like the clouds opened up and she knew what she wanted to do with her life. She wanted to be a dental surgeon. And she's been a dental surgeon now for her entire career. And she gives people back their smile and she finds that rewarding. I was never so lucky to find that one thing. But if you focus your kids on what do you want to solve, how do you want to make the world better? And I now have grown children, and I'm very proud of what they've decided to do with their lives. Quite different, but quite fun. One's a Hollywood screenwriter, very successful. You've seen his movies and stuff. But he wants to put smiles on people in a different way. So
that's a good question. What do you want to solve? But you have to ask this question even if you don't want to be entrepreneur. I mean, it is a question for everyone.
It's for everyone. When you look at companies today, especially with millennials, they don't take a job just for here's a salary.
Right.
They want to have purpose and meaning. Anybody can make shoes, but there's a company called Tom Shoes. When you buy a pair, they give a pair to someone who's never owned a pair of shoes. Not only does that make the customers feel good about the brand, that makes the employees want to work there. They have shared values. The company stands for something. If all that you're about is money, you will find it very empty. Now, when I wrote Disrupt You, obviously the draw to people is it will give them the tools to become millionaires and become successful. But if you actually read the book, it's in 3 parts. Everybody thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing themselves. So the first thing is to change who you believe you are, because you've been told what you're not. You were told you're bad at math because in 3rd grade you didn't know 7 times 8. If I put you in 3rd grade right now, you'd kill it. Okay, you'd be the best third grader ever. Or you can't public speak because you got nervous at show and tell or whatever. So once you change that, it's easy. When you realize that you can break down the parts of your personality to change the value chain inside you, then you flip that and you realize you could do the same thing in business. And then the last third of the book is the one that I kind of snuck you into reading. If you can change yourself and you can make money, what's stopping you from changing the world? And I've watched so many people. My favorite person right now is a 17-year-old high school girl in the U.S.
17?
17, who, remember, I don't know what life is like in France, but in school you have like a science fair. I did the baking soda and vinegar volcano. You know, you do a stupid thing. Here's what she did at 17. She realized that the number 4 cause of death is being in hospitals and getting an infection. So not what the disease was, but you have surgery and your stitches get infected. So why not make stitches that change color if they're infected? And she figured out how to take the juice from a beet, which has a different pH balance than skin, and very simply figured out how to make sutures that will show you if there's an infection.
So smart.
How many millions of lives will she save? 17.
So smart. Right? She has a very great future.
So she files for a patent and she has the patent and everything. But do you see, she didn't sit down and go, how can I make a lot of money? She said, here's a problem I can solve. And because we're so interconnected, our phone puts us one click away from 7 billion potential customers. You only have to be right for 1 nanosecond to make a fortune or change the world. And I see this again and again. And that's what's great about being alive now.
You created so many opportunities for yourself. Tell me, Jay, do you know that Steve Jobs, Thomas Edison, and Richard Branson are all dyslexic like you?
Yep. And Walt Disney and on and on. 1 out of 3 Fortune 500 CEOs is dyslexic.
They are dyslexic and disruptive at the same time. So yeah. I thought, okay, it can be an handicap for some people, but you can transform it on a real power, you know, and it can help you to doing big things in life.
Yeah. So for me, as a child, I was embarrassed that I couldn't read like the other kids. So when there was a group project assigned, my hand would go up first. Let me be in charge. You write this, you read that, you do that. So I could delegate everything to hide the fact that I couldn't read, which is great training for being a CEO.
Entrepreneur mindset.
Yeah. But yeah, here's the thing. All of us have differences that can be either considered a handicap or a blessing. I'll give you a great example. There was a young man in middle school who had ADHD. And the treatment from the doctors was to keep him so much pills that he was always in a fog and he hated it. And so he begged, the only time he could control and calm down his mind was when he was swimming in his backyard, in his pool.
Okay.
So he begged his teacher and his parents and his doctor, if I promise to swim every day, will you take me off the meds? And they said, if you keep your promise. And he kept his promise. He swam every day in his backyard. By the time he was the end of his teenage years, he had 17 Olympic gold medals. You know him as Michael Phelps.
Wow, okay.
So his superpower wasn't swimming. His superpower was ADHD. And by conquering that, he could conquer anything.
Yeah, you have to open your mind and just be positive about yourself and what you are living through. You have developed a disruptive solution for brands like Coca-Cola, Disney, and Microsoft, and you have helped grow multi-billion-dollar giants such as LinkedIn and eBay. That's very impressive, Jay. How did you get there? What are the 3 skills that you have learned and actively developed to get to this level?
So, the one that I wish I would have learned faster, probably took me 10, 15 years, is I used to have what I thought was a brilliant idea, the right solution, and you go and you get that meeting with a different generation with a different mindset, and you come out of there going, why don't they get it? How can they be so stupid and not see the future? Well, that isn't their job. It's your job to explain the future in a way people stuck in the past can comprehend. And once I put that burden on me, it changed everything. The other thing you have to understand is you have to understand that the person across from the table has a different motivation from you. I was in my 20s. I had a solution for Pepsi. I managed to get a meeting with the CEO. For me, this was the biggest opportunity of my life. I studied everything. I was super prepared. For the CEO of Pepsi, I was the only thing stopping him from going to lunch. So not exactly the same motivation. But when you can hit some of the primary motivators, and I talk about this in Disrupt You, such as fear. When I thanked him at the beginning of the meeting for taking the time and mentioned that I'd be in Atlanta tomorrow, which is the headquarters of Coca-Cola, their rival, suddenly the motivation changed. Suddenly he's leaning in. If his board finds out that he passed on something that Coke did, he could lose his job. Now the meeting had a new importance. So learning some of those skills is so important. Solve for others to solve for you. That will always steer you the right direction.
This is two skills that I keep. It's soft skills, actually, to explain the future and to understand others' motivation, right?
Right, absolutely.
This is how you get to this level and be able to work with these giants of the industry.
Here's all you need. If you don't take the time to read Disrupt You, which you can change your life for the price of a cappuccino, you only need two things to be successful: insight and perseverance. I can teach you a process for having insight, for finding those holes in the market, for finding that great idea, or taking a great idea that somebody else found and just aiming it somewhere else. Perseverance comes from within, but I can teach you how to cultivate it into passion. And it's that passion that gets you. There's a reason why immigrants are so successful. It's not that their identity isn't that job that they have today. It's that their journey started before they even got to the shores of where they are, that they are on a mission to accomplish something. And because they're on that mission, nothing will stop them. And so when you can come up with that passion, that will get you through the rough obstacles.
That's very important, yeah. But you know, Jay, I always hear that like you have to be perseverant, and this is true. But how do you learn perseverance?
Well, first you have to start off with having a positive mindset. And every morning, as funny as it sounds, when I shave in the mirror, I say two things. Today can be better than yesterday, and I have the power to make it so. And
really?
as silly as that sounds, let me tell you what happens biologically. By saying those things, you release endorphins. You light up your synaptic nerves, okay? And you have the same effect that you would get from cocaine or opioids. You suddenly feel better about yourself, better about the world. You're more open to relationships and opportunities. And now you'll see those problems as possibilities. We've all worked with that person that comes in with the cloud. Oh, You know, here's a great example. Two guys were in traffic in Tel Aviv. Paris has worse traffic than Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is not a big city. And it dawned on them. Rather than complain about the traffic, they wait, the phone company knows where my phone is. If they tell me to go left and the other guy to go right, there's no more traffic. That was the beginning of Waze. Mm-hmm. And they sold the company and became billionaires without a penny in revenue. So all of these genius things that you think about start with the simplest of ideas and the courage and perseverance to see them through.
But yeah, I agree with that, of course, Jay, but you really say it every morning. It's not like basic self-development techniques. You say it through yourself.
Absolutely. When you start embracing positivity, when you start embracing a growth mindset, you'll see your life change. And you don't want to go back to that other way.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that when I was a public CEO, a NASDAQ CEO, I've had 300,000 employees, I've had 400,000 employees, I've had large companies. My inbox was, I hate you, we're suing you, this problem. I mean, if it made it to the CEO, it's a problem. Your day was miserable. When I wrote Disrupt You, I've heard from people in 140 nations. Every day I wake up to an email or two, what I call love letters, of people saying, thank you for writing this. It changed my life. It helped me. Here's my story. And I get more joy and satisfaction from helping those people that I'll never get to meet because they did the work. They helped themselves. I just held up a mirror to their soul. There's one letter that stands out that I included in my next book from a woman who was in her 50s. She put all her money into doing some Airbnbs, and she lost all her money. And she decided she was going to kill herself.
Oh.
And so she was in her 50s. She called her daughter in her 20s to say goodbye. And her daughter did something that shocked her. Her daughter laughed at her. And she was shocked. I'm telling you, I'm killing myself. And she didn't laugh at her meanly. She laughed at, you're killing yourself over money? That's the dumbest reason in the world to kill yourself. And her daughter, she wrote, gave her my book. She saw herself differently. And now she has a new successful business and life goes on happy. And that's so rewarding. The problem that most people face nowadays is with social media, they don't see other people's lives and struggles. They see the greatest hits reel.
Yeah.
They just see these moments, sometimes fake moments, that makes it look like everybody else's life is a dream and a party, and you're the only one that's suffering and alone. So if you hear my voice on this podcast, know that I believe in you. I don't even have to know you. You're human. Humans are the most adaptive, resilient creatures ever created. And anything that you're wearing, any movie that you like, any book that you've read, any song, was created by somebody that was stubborn and persevered. So join the stubborn. That's what makes life interesting.
And thank you so much, Jay. It's so great to hear you and to hear that. So thank you so much for me and our listeners. You wrote a book called Disrupt You that became a bestseller and an ultimate guide for so many entrepreneurs around the world. It was in 2015, and this book has changed so many lives. We are waiting for the French edition coming this fall, and this is very exciting. I'm so happy for you. Now you are ready to disrupt France. Good luck, because it's not easy at all. In your book, you say, whether by choice or circumstance, every career gets disrupted. And it can't be as true as it is today, in this moment. But it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, right?
Oh, yeah. So disruption isn't about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens to you. So I've spent the past 5 years traveling the world, telling everybody that their career will get disrupted. Post-pandemic, I don't think I have to make that case anymore. Everybody saw how easy it was for the entire world to get disrupted. And if you think that's the only disruption that's going to happen in your lifetime, you're sadly mistaken. AI systems will replace most middle management, most lawyers, most accounting. Autonomous vehicles will replace truck drivers and Uber drivers. Anything that can be automated will be automated.
Yeah.
And as we raise wages, that doesn't lift people out of poverty. It makes the boardroom make it easier to say, let's automate to save money. So you're going to see half of all jobs disappear. So you can either wait back for a wave of change to happen and drown, or you can take advantage of the change and say, what new opportunities does this bring? How can I get ahead of it? What can I do? And so you can take charge of your future or not.
But
And
sometimes you need some help because, it's good to hear that. And when you say it, yeah, it's obvious. It's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Of course, I agree. I want to disrupt. I want to disrupt myself to be better, to have more opportunities. But it may be difficult by myself. You know what I mean?
So you're 100% right. So I was guilty of part of that. So I used to run EMI, the world's biggest music company, home of Queen and the Beatles and you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember being at Wembley Stadium in London, and we had one of our artists on the stage, and 100,000 fans screaming. And you feel like that person made it on their own. They're there by themselves, and they're singing from their heart to yours. What you don't see is the managers and lawyers and songwriters and musicians and costume people and roadies and the thousands of people that it took to make that moment happen.
The team.
No one makes it on their own.
Yeah.
There's no billionaire one-person company. It doesn't exist. So here's something that I want you to hear. There is no self-made man or woman. You're going to need a series of mentors in your life. And I teach people how to find those mentors. And it starts with a basic principle that is the opposite of what you were taught in school. In school, you were taught a scarcity mindset. You were taught that here's how math works. Jay buys a banana for $1, I sell it to you for $2, and that's how I make money. I make money by taking your money. In game theory, that's called zero-sum game. It's like a poker table. You can only make as much money as on the table. But that's not where wealth happens. There is a self-made billionaire every 26 hours now. Let that sink in. I don't know what you did over the weekend, but you're a slacker, okay? Every 2 days, there's a self-made billionaire. And here's why. Today, you don't get money from others. You make money from thin air, like magic. If I went to you, I sold my last company for $200 million, okay, after 18 months. If I said I'm starting a new company and I'll sell you 10% for $10,000, what do I now have? I have $10,000 in cash and $90,000 in equity that I created. I can hire people with that. I can buy things. I literally made that money that didn't exist.
So you create money.
You create money. Governments don't create money. Entrepreneurs do from thin air. So if you now understand that there's no scarcity of money, you'll now understand why people want to mentor you. Because it's not this dog-eat-dog fighting over the same dollar of who gets it. It's how can I help you add more value to the world I live in, the world the mentor lives in. Everyone benefits.
You mentor people around you?
No, so what I did after Disrupt You is I got all those emails that I told you, but I got one that really bothered me. It was from a young person that said, this is all great, but I could never do it. And I couldn't understand why I couldn't connect with that young person. And so I decided to do an experiment. And that's my second book called Future Proofing You. I took a young immigrant who grew up on welfare and I mentored him 1 day a week for a year. I gave him no cash. I gave him no introduction to contacts. And he had to start a business that took $0. And he went from homeless to self-made millionaire in 11 months. And I document how he did it and all the steps from Disrupt You, what I call the 12 truths that got him there. Now, this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. That's not what I'm teaching people. I'm teaching them what they did learn about the world. So his name was Vin. Vin was willing to work harder for 1 year than most people are willing to in order to live the rest of his life the way that most people can't. And I think that's a fair deal. Did he get to date and go to the clubs for a year? No. Did he watch TV for a year? No. Did he spend 5 hours on social media? No. But now he's got corporate clients and can travel the world. And I did that to show that anyone can. And I'll continue. I won't do that specific thing again, but what I'm going to be doing this year is I'm selecting 1,000 people from around the world and setting up a Facebook group for the village of these people to help mentor each other and see if we can create 1,000 millionaires. Again, the purpose isn't to make money. The purpose is to show people that they can. and that they can make a better world for themselves, their family, and for the rest of us.
I mean, I can imagine how much this experience was amazing for this guy. And I don't know him, but I'm very happy for him. That's a great experience to have you as a mentor, I think.
It was as amazing for me because I learned so much. And what was interesting was we talked about the growth mindset before. I had the challenge of how do you take somebody that grew up with the exact opposite of a growth mindset? Parents on welfare, he's on welfare, crime, a tough neighborhood, you know. And how do you instantly switch that? And so he didn't get to find this out till he read the second book, Future Proofing You, that in our first meeting, I lied to him. I don't like lying, but there was a purpose. There's a psychological principle called the Pygmalion effect. A professor went to a school, tested all the students, and told the teachers these 3 students would be super learners, super achievers, super growers that year. At the end of the year, those 3 kids excelled beyond everybody else, but the professor lied. He never looked at the test results, picked 3 names out of a hat. If you tell people they're special and you treat them special, they become special.
You become what you believe.
Yeah, what you believe you achieve. I told Vin I interviewed over 100 candidates, and he was the only one that had all the attributes to be a self-made millionaire. And so though he didn't believe it, he saw this older person, the successful person. If I see it, it must be there. And here's how much he believed it. His first month, he did $70,000, which was very impressive. But midway through the year, his business got knocked over, not because of his own doing, but the market changed. And so I'm saying to myself, okay, it's over, but he made it $500,000. That's a good book still. And for that month, he was supposed to make $100,000, and he came in for our meeting, and he was really down, and I knew his business had been done. And he only made $96,000, and he was upset that he only made $96,000 for that month. And he had pivoted and figured out how to change. He had that growth mindset. When his business went south, he said, that doesn't work. Let me try something that will work. And I was laughing inside that this person whose life was on welfare was unhappy that they only made $96,000.
Yeah,
that
right.
showed me that the growth mindset was in his soul.
Yeah.
And that was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Yeah, this is so powerful. Jay, you teach at universities, you also volunteer at hackathons, and you do so many things for the new generations. Spending time with millennials, do you think it's the best way to disrupt yourself?
Every generation faces different challenges than the generation before. So the last thing I wanted to be was the old guy saying, here, kid, here's how you got to do it. Back in my day.
With this accent?
Yes, with that accent. That's the old California prospector gold miner accent.
Okay, I get it.
But what I realized is today's youth see the world so differently, and it's not a better or worse. The world is different. So, for example, my generation was work hard, and when you become 60 or 65, start enjoying life. How insane is that concept? Okay. And especially if you know Americans, I mean, the first 20 years of my career, I never took a day off or a vacation. We don't shut down for August. You know, at most you get 2 weeks vacation and no one takes it.
Unbelievable for French people. So tell me, Jay, what did you learn from the young generation?
Oh, what I learned was in our generation, we had this work until you're old and then start enjoying life. And yet, if you look at the young people today, they actually travel more than old people. They realized, why should life be bifurcated into work years and enjoyment years? Why not have a healthier balance? And what the pandemic taught us is that you can live anywhere and work anywhere. So why not, let's say you're a programmer, you know, Google, for example, is saying you never have to come back to the office. So why not work 1 month in Tahiti, 1 month in Thailand, 1 month wherever, and enjoy life? People that work from home actually are more productive and have less turnover. And they're also happier. They're not spending 80 minutes a day commuting, wasting that time. That's time that could be with loved ones.
Yeah.
So you're seeing people that are searching to have a better life throughout their life and not delay gratification for a date that they may not live to see. I also think that they're saying, I don't know whether I will be financially successful, but I do know that I can make an impact and a difference. So they're looking for more purpose in their life.
Yeah, true.
And if you can align that, and corporations are now realizing they have to do more than just say fake words about it, but if they can really stand for something and make a difference, that you'll attract better employees and a better culture in your company and a better balance. So absolutely. That's also, as I've traveled the world, as the book came out in different languages, and I've learned so much. I will tell you, the one advantage that America still has, and this will come as a surprise to you, we don't have the best education system. We don't have the most money. We don't have the most ingenuity. Here's the only thing we have. Have you ever watched The Simpsons, the cartoon?
It's not my favorite, but yeah, I know The Simpsons.
Yeah. So the basic storyline is very American. The father, Homer, comes up with the get-rich-quick idea. It goes horribly wrong, and then life goes on. And so Americans don't have a fear of failing. They don't have a fear of public humiliation and embarrassment. And that's why they try different things. And that's about the only advantage we have, is that we're not afraid to try and try again. And many cultures, people are so afraid of stepping out of the norm, of being looked at as different. In Australia, they have an expression, don't be the tallest poppy, you know.
What does it mean?
It means when one flower stands out, it gets chopped off.
Oh, okay.
So nobody wants to stand out. Well, how do you get your business noticed, you know, unless you can stand out and be different?
Yeah, I understand. I feel like we are more exigent about the quality of our lives. And that's why I start all my interviews with the same question. Why? Why are you doing what you do today? Because I want to know the purpose, you know. It is so important to know someone, to know somebody, and I don't know, to feel the connection with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, everybody asks, where's Waldo? They never ask, how's Waldo?
Yeah. What do you think about innovation in education? I ask you this question, Jay, because I spent, let's say, almost 20 years at school to learn everything and nothing at the same time.
Yep.
And in the end of the day, when I jumped into the business world, I was overwhelmed because I didn't know important things like how starting on an online business, breaking my limiting beliefs, being more creative, or managing my money. So after all these years of learning and meeting inspirational people like you and other guests on the podcast, we launched with my team a new app, Studi, where you can basically learn everything you don't learn at school from the best expert in the world. I'm very proud of it. We teach the most important skills to succeed in every area in our lives: finance, psychology, entrepreneurship, time management, etc. So my question is, what courses would you like to study at school? Like courses that should be mandatory to you.
Okay. So I always joke that I'm so glad they taught us calculus in school because that's so helpful during calculus season. You have to remember, school was designed to create factory workers, to give you enough reading and writing so you could work for somebody else and make their dreams happen. The IQ test was actually invented by the US military to see who's worth training and who's just cannon fodder that you can just kill. So nobody was educating you for you. They were educating you for some purpose that society had chosen. So if I had to break down what's most important, you'll never be able to start a business, get followers to join you as employees, get investors to follow and believe you, get customers, unless you can communicate. So learning speaking and learning writing are two very important things. And I don't mean the type of, writing that they teach in school. And speaking isn't about learning a language. Speaking is learning how to communicate.
Yeah.
And so those are very important. So we really just don't teach people how to succeed. And we also don't teach people why do you want to succeed? What is your purpose? Where do you find happiness? The curriculum was set 100 years ago when half of the people lived on farms.
Yeah.
There was a teacher that wrote me that she taught in an inner city in a tough neighborhood where kids basically had two choices after high school. Would you like fries with that or going to prison? I mean, basically, some menial job or whatever. And she said, can I adapt your book into a high school course? So she made a high school workbook and a high school course and everything. And she won Teacher of the Year in the United States.
Oh.
The impact this has had. So then I did my part, which was to lean on HP, Hewlett-Packard, and say, you guys are known for printing. Why don't you print a bunch of these to give out to every Boys and Girls Club in the U.S. so, thousands of kids can have a chance to see that they can make something. Some will, some won't. But unless they see that it's possible, it's difficult for most people to believe that it's not only possible, but it's probable.
So we think the same thing about school and traditional education, right? But I think that your children went to the big university like Harvard, Brown. It's like I was very surprised because when I read your book, I suppose that the children will be disruptor like you, And yeah, tell me about that.
So to quote my youngest, who went to Princeton, which is the top undergrad school in the U.S., and Harvard for his MBA, which is the top business school in the country. And he knows I'm not a big fan of business schools.
Okay, so he knows.
He said, I did those two things because I'll never starve. Meaning anybody sees a resume that you went to the top university and the top business school and you graduated #1 in your class, there will always be a job available no matter what the economy. And he's right. Okay. He also made sure that he was fluent, talk about disruptive thinking, in Chinese and Japanese. And this is a blonde, blue-eyed kid who is fluent on the phone. They think he's Chinese or Japanese. Because he said, you don't know who's going to be ruling the world in my lifetime, so I better cover it. So I'm not against formal education.
Okay.
I just believe to have in the U.S. an entire generation that graduates with a mortgage but no house stifles innovation. Kids have so much student debt, $1 trillion of student debt, that they can't take the risk. Because when you're young, you don't have kids, you don't have mortgage, you don't have all these things, so that if you try something and it fails, you really haven't lost anything. But if you have this heavy debt, it really makes it very difficult for the next generation to try.
So your relationship with your son is good, is okay.
Yeah, both sons, yeah. And my other one is if you saw Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Oh, that was his movie.
Okay.
He wrote that. He's got a bunch of movies coming out this year. It was a good year. The only people that worked in Hollywood during the pandemic were writers, so he was busy. But he loves his career, and they both have the confidence to know that they could go and do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, of course. So Jay, of course, I read your book, Disrupt You, and I highly recommend to all our listeners to read it, even if it's French or English. It's a very good book. And I want to share something that really blowed my mind. It's the way you think about failure. You talk about the Japanese who have an art form called kintsugi. Japanese culture is so amazing, right? Inspiring, and I love it. So they fix broken pottery with gold lacquer resin, believing the repaired ceramics are more gorgeous and precious than they were before they were destroyed. That's a beautiful way to describe failure and to talk about it. This image, I think, will stay in my mind forever, really. So, Jay, tell me, what is the biggest broken pottery you got in your life, and how you did fix it into the most precious repaired ceramic?
Okay, you get super points. That is the best question I've been asked on a podcast. What a great question. I've had more failure than anyone because I just try endlessly. So I'm actually the world's greatest collection of failures.
Really?
And the few successes. Probably my biggest failure is no one explained business to me. So in the beginning of my career, I made video games. And at one point, I had 7 of the top 10 video games in the US. And another video game company came to me and said, we want to acquire you. We'll give you 30% of our company for your company. And I'm like, and then if you mess it up, then I have nothing. And so that company you would know as Activision Blizzard nowadays. That means I turned down $9 billion when I was very young. So that's probably financially the biggest failure. But I've had endless things that didn't. But each one taught me things that propelled me forward. And that's the thing that people have to understand. There were 2 guys, and I wrote about it in the book, that I worked with at the beginning of my career that had one of the best ideas ever, which was hook up computers to traffic lights to get rid of traffic in cities. It was called Trafodata. And city planners didn't understand it. And so Bill Gates and Paul Allen's first company went belly up. Their second company was called Microsoft. It did better. Walt Disney's first company failed. Henry Ford's first company failed. I mean, many of the businesses that we use today pivoted, that their idea failed, but they learned an insight. And that's what people have to understand. It's not like you sit there and have this amazing vision and then just act on it. It's more like sailing across the Mediterranean. When the wind moves, you have to move, and you tack back and forth. Eventually, you'll get to your destination if you don't quit. And that's what people have to understand.
Yeah. But I think the image of, the pottery with the kintsugi, I don't know if I pronounce good the word.
Oh, no, your Japanese is great.
I love it so much.
So I guess I would say I have the scars on my back. I am the broken vessel. But those scars have made me what I am.
And tell me, Jay, how much money you lose in your entire life? I mean, it will be a lot of money.
Oh, well, you can't calculate it. It's in the billions. I'll give you a great example. So I got into the internet in 1978, okay? Probably before you were born. I was doing things very early. And in my first company, we had 2 ideas for a product in the early days of the PC. One was to edit video. We said, okay, if you could edit video on a computer, it'd be a lot cheaper, a lot faster. And the other one was the thing we called digital mailman. I could write something on my computer and send it to you on your computer. So we made the decision that email wasn't a good enough idea to invent.
Okay, all right.
But the point is, when I make fun of it, is there's the lesson in there. You don't have to be the best and the smartest if you're doing something in a new area. Because if you're the only one there, by definition, you're the best in the world. I did a TED talk that you can listen about.
Yes, very good.
That's the message. So this young man that I mentored, he wanted to do social media because he's from that generation. And I'm like, there's 40 million people and there's no way that Coca-Cola is going to call a guy on welfare and said, please do our social media. So I said, look at what's happening in the news. Find a new topic. Find something people are talking about and make yourself the person that does social media for that. And this was the year that Bitcoin went crazy. So he said he does social media for cryptocurrency. And he was the only person that marketed himself as that. And the second you get that first client, even if you do it for free, you have what they call in business school a case study. So now he could show what he did for that client. And so the same people that were paying him $500 a month in the first month, new customers were paying him $30,000 a month for the same services because he could prove the value of what he could do.
Yeah, I feel like, you know what? Maybe sometimes or often we are too lazy to think about other way to achieve our goals, you know, because it makes more time. We have to be more creative and stuff like that. So yeah, maybe it's that we are lazy, you know.
I also think when people don't see others doing it, they don't see a path that's possible.
Okay.
Just by reading the stories in Disrupt You,
yeah.
You see again and again hundreds of people doing something different.
You're right. You need examples.
And so that's the thing. You know, one of my favorite examples was a young man who wanted to go into advertising, and he wanted to work at a big creative agency, and he got a job with one of the big multinational giant ad agencies. And he's stuck in the basement in a cubicle moving numbers around. He wanted to shoot himself. I mean, he hated his job. But one day he was Googling around and he realized no one had bought the keywords of the names of the 5 most famous creative directors, the heads of the big agencies. So for $9, he bought those names and knew the famous people would Google themselves. And when they Googled themselves, up at the top it says, hey, I want to work for you. Click here to see my portfolio. 3 of the 5 offered him jobs. He changed his salary, made 5 times as much money, probably accelerated his career by 15 years. For a $9 investment.
It's what I say, Jay. You have to train your brain to think differently, and it's like a muscle. You know, you have to train your brain. And after experience and experience, it's like it's begin automatic for you.
Well, that's where the positive mindset comes in. As silly as it sounds, you're opening up your mind to possibilities. You're framing everything in, what can I do? A fixed mindset says, I'm too dumb, I'm not good enough when I fail a test. A growth mindset says, I failed the test, I'll have to study more next time. I'll have to try something different. And when you realize that it's not that people are born successful, there's no one better than you. And once you can understand that, then everything becomes probable if you put in the work.
Have you ever Googled your name?
Have I ever what my name?
Googled your name.
Oh, all the time.
Of course.
Occasionally there's not nice things written by not nice people.
I did when I Googled Jay Samit. I found 24 related search including Tony Robbins, Dalai Lama, Kobe Bryant, and Oscar Wilde. Interesting, you know? Is there someone who inspires you? And if yes, why?
Oscar Wilde. Wow, that's crazy.
I repeat, Tony Robbins, Dalai Lama, Kobe Bryant, and Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, I've met Tony. I've met the Dalai Lama. Obviously, Oscar Wilde died a long time ago. People that inspire. I'm inspired all the time. I'm inspired not so much by the famous people, but by the people that just did incredible things because they didn't take no for an answer. That young girl that came up with the stitches that saved lives. You know, and every time I see people, you know, a 10-year-old kid started the campaign to get rid of plastic straws. At 10 years old. By the time that he was 12, they were illegal in California and a whole bunch of other states. I mean, the power that we each have to change the world is limitless. And so every time I see people that have done so much more with the time they've been given, it humbles me to work harder.
It's your way to say, wait a minute, Manal, no one in this list inspires me.
No, well, I mean...
No? Are you sure?
I mean, I'm not dissing anybody. I mean, those aren't the people that get me excited. I'll tell you a quick story. I end my second book with probably the most inspirational person I met. A guy from Kenya. When he's 6 years old, he wakes up in his hut. He lives in a small village, and his parents and family have all left while he's sleeping, and they left him behind. He's all by himself. He walks miles and miles to get to the nearest town. He's a little kid. He works. He's a street orphan. Eventually, he saves up enough money to buy a car to drive workers. And he saves that money and gets a fleet, and he becomes one of the wealthiest men in the country. And by this time, he's married, he's grown kids, they go on ski vacations to Switzerland, super successful. And he's driving through the street one day and he sees street orphans like he was. So he puts 3 of them in his car, he comes home, he tells his wife, we have 3 more children. She thinks he's crazy, but she says, okay. He goes and does this 22,000 times. He raises in his home, he had to build barracks and farms to feed them. He raised as his own 22,000 homeless children, not writing a check, actually fathered them in his home. And they have now changed the entire nation. They've become doctors and leaders and such a force for positive change. That inspires me.
This guy inspires you, okay.
Absolutely.
Who is the person who made the most impact in your life?
I've been so lucky. God, these are hard questions. I'd say I didn't get a mentor towards later in life. There's a gentleman named Ken Berry. He was Richard Branson's original partner in founding Virgin. And he was running EMI when I was brought in. And it was the first time that I had a mentor. I was already 40. And it really allowed me to grow faster than I had ever grown in what I believed I could do.
How?
When I was brought into EMI, I said, I know nothing. This was when Napster and the music industry was cut in half, and they were laying off tens of thousands of people. And Daft Punk was one of our bands.
Very good, Daft Punk.
When he brought me in, I said, I know nothing about the music industry. And he said, I have 11,000 people to know about the music industry. What I don't have is a future.
Ooh.
And so he allowed me to go in with my crazy ideas, and he would tell me why they won't work, not to put me down or to stop me, but to have me go back and make them better. And so little by little, we invented digital download sales, and we invented internet radio, and we invented streaming, and made all these things that are now make the music industry thrive today. And it was all because he allowed me to try my crazy stuff and guided me, as opposed to so many bosses that go, no, that won't work. Go away. You're bothering me. So he was probably the most influential in the business sense.
So we can say he was your mentor in a way?
Yes. If I had to say somebody that I didn't get to meet, I'd probably say my hero was Harry Houdini.
Okay. Jay, beyond the business side, what aspect of your life would you like to disrupt today?
I have a perfect life, so I don't have to disrupt anything, but I will tell you how I was disrupted by the pandemic.
Okay.
So when the pandemic hit, I believed we'd be in our houses a month, 2 months. I never imagined it would be over a year. And my approach to life is to look for the silver lining. I don't know if that expression is in French, but to look for the positive in anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you don't catch the disease, the positive for me was, in a typical month, I lived my life on airplanes. In January of 2020, I was in 4 continents and 12 countries right before the pandemic. So now for the first time in my life, I was going to have free time. how could I put that to use? So one of my passions that I never shared publicly was I paint. I'm a watercolor.
Oh, amazing.
And so I decided that I would put up a painting a day for the first 100 days I was home.
Very good challenge.
Just to show people what you can do. What I didn't expect is what happened next. I heard from art agents. I heard from art galleries. Next thing you know, I have a solo show in Manhattan with the Top Gallery. My paintings are bought by famous people. I've had commissions. I have signed lithos out there. I am now a professional artist.
Yeah.
I never would have had the guts to put my art out there and do it. And I was so pleasantly surprised that my art brings joy to people.
That's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. So
That's
that just
great.
shows you, and anything and everything is possible if you put yourself out there.
You had a fast life and now it's a slow life. But as an artist, I have always thought that the environment has a huge influence on our fail and success. That's why I try to keep my workplace soft and clean. Now we are a lot working from home. What does your house look like?
Oh, I love my house. So, I collect art, and very large pieces. I have pieces that are 3 meters by 5 meters. I mean, so my art. I'm trying to do it in meters. My art has 9 meter. My house has 9 meter high ceilings. I'm surrounded by just trees and woods. You don't see any other houses. I've had deer. I'm living in the middle of Los Angeles. You wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I'm living up in the hills. But deer and
It's like a little oasis.
And bobcats and raccoons and squirrels, and it's just very, very peaceful and sunny and very, very happy. Happy place.
Happy place. And you like Lego, right?
Lego?
Yeah, I see a Lego just behind you.
Yeah, my son made that. Yeah, I loved playing it when I was young. My son is absolutely addicted to it. If I could find it, he actually made a Lego version of Disrupt You that opens and a fish pops out of Lego. Very cool.
It's a piece of art. Very good.
Yes. Yeah. No, anything that you can express your imagination. For me, I tried meditation. It doesn't work for me. I'm too restless. But when I paint with watercolors, the timing of the water and the paper and the exactness, you have to be so focused that everything else clears. And for me, it's like meditation. It allows me to clear the mind. And I do morning walks on the beach, which I find very helpful.
Oh, yeah, of course. You are in Los Angeles, so you have this chance to be able to walk on the beach. The best feeling ever, of course.
That's why I moved here.
Where is your favorite place in Los Angeles?
Probably the beach.
The beach?
Just it's
nature.
People don't realize how many mountains and trails and hikes and stuff there are in Los Angeles is a huge city in hectares. It's massive. It's the largest city on earth in that sense. And there's so many different fun, green things. But I've traveled all over the world. I mean, there's many places that I absolutely love. And I will tell you this, Paris right before dawn is one of the best cities to walk.
Yeah.
The architecture is beautiful. It's so quiet and peaceful. And around every corner, there's something that's just so striking.
But I love California. My favorite place is Monterey and San Diego.
Oh.
Love it so much. And I can't wait to come back, actually. But Jay, I feel like California is not the place to be anymore. Like everybody go to Texas, right? What happened?
Well, California taxes are very high. Texas has no taxes. So so many people did go to Austin. It is becoming a tech center. But Silicon Valley still is the source of so much venture capital and private equity, that it's still going to be a dominant player.
Silicon Valley in your heart forever.
Silicon Valley's been very, very good to me.
So, Jay, we talk about so many important topics. To me, the most important one is self-disruption. As you said in your book, everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. This is so true. So, what are the 3 steps we can do tomorrow to disrupt ourselves and create new opportunities?
Well, the first thing is don't start tomorrow, start today. Really ask yourself, what are your limiting beliefs? What are those blinders that are holding you back? What do you believe that you can't do? And then go do those things. Because the second you realize that you are malleable, that you can change yourself, changing the world becomes so much easier. And so go and do that thing that scares you the most, that you don't believe that you can do. Reach out to those people, start that side business, and understand that you will make mistakes, you will fail, and you will grow, and you will fail, and you will grow, and you will fail, and you will fail your way to the top. And once you embrace that mindset that it is a process, there is no shortcut. I mean, when I was in college, I wrote for the school paper. And when I made it to editor, I got to pick the assignments, and I would interview all the famous people that would come to campus and ask them how they got from where I was to where they were. I thought there was some secret that they must have known to become these big famous people. And you realize, just as we said, they just persevered. And the harder you work, the luckier you get. And the more you try, one of those things will take you further than the person that never tried. And that's really what the process is. I'm not smarter than the average bear. I've met some of the most brilliant minds on earth, which is what keeps you humble. And I've also seen people that aren't that bright that have built very successful businesses. We're so interconnected that it is so easy to just find that one thing that will change your life and give you control and freedom to live the life that you deserve and that your family deserves. And with that as a motivation, why would you stop? Again, I don't believe in reincarnation, so I got one shot. So why would you spend a day at a job that you don't like, a week at a job, a year? You're going to wake up one day and realize you've traded your precious life, the only life you get, for what? And if you don't believe me, go talk to your grandparents or go to an old age home and ask people their biggest regret in life. And it will never be something they failed at. It will be something they failed to try. And don't live a life of regret. Live a life of wonder and challenge. And that's where you will find the satisfaction that comes from overcoming those obstacles and from overcoming them for others.
Thank you so much, Dave, for answering all my questions and sharing so much value. Before ending this conversation, I have a little ritual. I will ask you some fire questions to go to know you better. The goal is simple: answering quickly, being spontaneous, and of course, having fun. Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready for the fire question?
Can't wait.
Let's go. What is your first step when you wake up in the morning?
Pee.
Tell me a bad habit you need to break.
Bad habit that I need to break, French fries.
What do you usually do when you are depressed?
Paint and listen to music.
What is the last book you read?
Last book I read was Guns, Germs, and Steel.
What activity would you like to do more often?
Paint.
If you were an animal, what would you be?
If I was an animal, what would I be? Well, I love chimpanzees, so I guess I gotta be a chimpanzee.
If you could come back in the time and live the last year again, what would you do differently?
Absolutely nothing. I have a wonderful life, and I wouldn't want to change a thing.
Let's say you can bring a non-fiction book in every curriculum school around the world, except yours, of course. Which one will you choose?
The Peter Principle. It changed the way I saw the world, and I think would do the same for young people.
What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is wasting the precious time that I have left.
What are you watching on Netflix?
What am I watching? Starting tomorrow, Lupin.
Oh, great, French.
Yeah, the second season starts.
With Omar Sy, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant show.
What is the last big gift you made for yourself?
I just bought another house. I guess that would count. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Okay.
What is your favorite place to take a break and rest?
Probably the go-to is Hawaii.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Pizza.
What skill would you like to improve?
I wish I could be musical. I've hung around with some of the greatest musicians in the world, and I just don't have that skill set. I wish I did.
What is something you believe that other people think is crazy?
I believe that every single human being can change the world.
According to your friend and family, what is your best quality?
My creativity.
And according to you, what is your biggest weakness?
Probably lazy.
What is the last thing you do before to sleep?
Check the phone.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. You have added so much value to us, and I really learned so much with you. Thank you for this conversation.
Well, I want to thank you. I do a lot of podcasts, and I appreciate the effort and time you put into researching and the questions. It made it very enjoyable for me, and I'm sure it made it enjoyable for your audience. So keep doing a great job. Hopefully when I come to France, we'll get to meet face to face.
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you so much, Jay. You know what? I have so much more questions. So if you are okay, we can do another conversation for your new book, Future Profile New, maybe in French, very soon.
I hope somebody does it in French. Yeah, that's the new one.
I'm gonna read. Yeah, I'm gonna read this book. Thank you so much. For our listeners. For our listeners who want to reach out to you, send you an email, follow you, or of course order your book, Disrupt You, where would they go?
So the French version, wherever French books are sold, I don't know, Disrupt You is the name of the book.
Okay.
Amazon, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, social media. I'm very easy to find. I'm on Instagram, and you can also find my art on Instagram. So,
great. The French version will be available this fall.
Correct, November.
Okay, I will share the link in our website, lemanalshow.com. Thank you so much, Jay Samit. I wish you all success you deserve in everything you do.
Enjoy.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation until the end, and I really hope you had a good time with us. These videos, while fun to make, require a lot of work behind the scenes, from preparation, shooting, editing, and translation. There's a lot of organization and effort put into creating what you see in these videos, so if you enjoy this conversation and more, the best way to support my work is to subscribe to this channel, and I will be so grateful. And I would love to know, what part of your life would you like to disrupt? Tell me everything in the comment section. Can't wait to read your comments. Last but not least, don't look me up on social media, because I quit social media a few years ago, and the only way to keep in touch is to subscribe to my private club, so click on the link in the description box below to join. I'm working on special content for you guys, so signing up to the private club will give you access to it and more. See you soon on the next episode. Ciao!